Lucky last, and she's lovely too, last but by no means least, is the wonderful Nicky Greville, Managing Director at Spark Foundry. Nicky's worked in the media industry for 19 plus years with a wealth of experience, we might as well just say nearly 20, with a wealth of experience spanning across most major categories. In her chat today, Nicky is going to speak to the role of cultural relevance and popular culture that it plays in people's decision making as we roller coaster our way towards a world that's entirely shoppable, understanding the opportunities for brands when the different experiences from media, customer and shopping collide, and giving us the ability to influence at scales that we have never seen before post-COVID. Take it away, Nicky.
Just adjust this down for my height. Kia ora everyone, I'm Nicky Greville. I am from Spark Foundry, New Zealand, and incredibly pleased to be here with you all. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you to New Zealand Marketing Magazine and all of the sponsors for having me here. It has been a really thought-provoking event. Now, it's 4 o'clock. You've been here all day concentrating hard on some really epic content, and I thought long and hard about this time slot because it's a tough one. It's super high energy. I'm not going to make you stand up and do something ridiculous, but I am going to keep things quite nice and short and snappy. Hopefully, and take you somewhere quite left field, because everyone else has said a lot of smart stuff, and I don't know that I need to say Omni anything again. So today, despite the future focus, what I want to do is take you back in time to 1955, because the past does have a very good way of teaching us amazing things about what's going to happen in the future. So against a backdrop of consumerism rising exponentially, television and popular culture taking off, rock and roll seemingly here to stay, and also post the very recent loss of one James Dean, the much lauded Rebel Without a Cause movie burst onto screens. It came out with mixed reviews and very swiftly turned into an absolute global phenomenon, a cult classic to this day. And within that film, in just a few seconds, mere seconds on the screen, the trajectory of one brand was changed abruptly and possibly unexpectedly into something incredibly huge. Cue the humble Ace comb. All it took was James Dean slicking those much admired locks back with a basic black comb, and boys US-wide and beyond were hooked. They had to have one, and they had to have it now. So what was it about the comb? It's not anything new. It's not very distinctive. Sorry, Ace, possibly was. But it was used by a character that they'd bought into at a time when to rebel was to define an entire new generation with vastly different beliefs than their predecessors, their parents, and that physical appearance being a really strong component of that rebellion. And so it was that product placement was born. Or in other words, an in-depth media experience and the impact of popular culture collided to create hugely positive results in sales for Ace combs. Fast forward back to today, 2022. You've heard some really exciting thoughts and predictions of what's in store for the future of retail. I've been kind of awestruck by how many opportunities there are to harness this exponential change we're actually living and breathing our way through at present. So thank you to all the fellow speakers today. Now, very broadly speaking, I'm going to take a few liberties with some of the topics today. Not all of them, some of them. and some of the broader topics and themes we can see in the marketing industry at present. And I'm going to start to bucket them. Apologies if you don't agree, I'll talk to you later about how I've done that. The first thing I'm going to talk about is media experiences. So in this bucket, we've got things like the rise of media as a retail channel. We all know this. We've got that incredibly dynamic responsiveness from comms, directly linked to supply and demand. And of course, smart technology really enabling that. The death of cookies. No need to talk about that, although I do understand we've seen a shift from 23 to 24, yay. This is incredibly important as we talk more and more about business outcomes as opposed to metrics. A changing zero moment of truth from physical only to this incredible combination of physical, interactive mobile, social, localized media. And of course, attention. Huge topic at the moment, this shift from viewability, vanity metrics into quality of focus. The next bucket is customer experience, of course, where we have the collapse of the funnel, with the time frame from top to bottom becoming instantaneous via direct and immediate links from brand story to customer action. Connected ecosystems being fundamental in terms of our planning from physical to digital worlds. Digital in-store, the opportunities here are endless. Fact tags, augmented reality shopping, virtual aisles, product location mapping, and more. And of course, enabling technology, again, facilitating all of this. The final bucket, shopping experiences, where we've heard about the Omnichannel. I had a whole bit to talk about. I'm not even going to talk about it. It's there, it's a thing, maybe. You either like it or you don't. Mobile commerce, social shoppability, loyalty, membership, and personalisation actually as fundamental, not only to ongoing interaction, but to cost management. Stores as hubs. And finally, an incredible theme at the moment, which is being hotly debated the globe around, is the brands, direct consumer, fighting it out with retailers for who owns the customer. So 3 big buckets, phew, and a lot of stuff, incredible topics. For those of us that can remember working through the GFC, which given that my tenure got rounded up by 1 year, I can, we're clearly seeing similar levels of exponential change when it comes to digitised behaviours. Then, of course, it was apps, everything, smartphones, tech-based companies, and so on. Now it's everything. And in the midst of more everything, more content, more platforms, more comparisons, more products, more delays, one thing hasn't changed in terms of what we are here to achieve. I'm pretty fond of saying to my team at Spark Foundry and all of our partners that we're here to do one job. We as advertisers and marketers are here to sell things. In other words, we're in the business of finding better business outcomes or higher affinity, engagement and transactions heat, as we call it at Spark Foundry. So why on earth would I start with a film reference from 1955? Well, for starters, what is more basic than a comb? Try to imagine the kind of brief you'd be writing for your agency partners should you be selling this comb. You might start looking at your target and talk about those with long and unruly hair. You might look for those showing intent signals, looking for health and wellness, or better yet, detangling conditioner. You might look for possibly a male skew, but could be any gender given the length of hair these days, and so on. The fact of the matter is, every single purchase has an emotional pull behind it. And what's exciting about the future of retail is the more data and insight we have to layer around what we know about our customers means that we can shorten those purchase windows, We can make them more efficient, we can make them more intuitive, and ultimately more attractive. But the final decision is emotional all the same. Emotions rule purchase decisions. This is the basis of neuroscience and its huge importance on marketing today. And this is why I think it's really important to talk about culture and the huge role it must play for the future of retail. Cultural fluency sits at the heart of our planning process at Spark Foundry for a reason. We are in the business of finding out what people want. There's me. I have my own personal preferences and beliefs. Then there's other people like me who collectively make up broader practices, beliefs, products and things we use and share. And at the junction of personal through to mass are shared behaviours, or what we want as cultural cohorts. So this brings me to a new theory I want to put in front of you. It's a beautiful seamless collision of media or content experiences, of customer experiences, and of shopping experiences. And it's something that we are coining as shop culture. It's a collision that has the potential to scale brands into astronomical trajectories. The closer we get to shoppable everything, the closer the relationship between popular cultural phenomena and shopping gets. We know that a huge groundswell of change is happening. It's happening now. It's really, really important, therefore, to understand why. So what is shop culture? We're talking about it as a modern shopping culture transmitted via mass media and aimed particularly at culturally linked cohorts. Okay, let's go back to the screen and how shop culture might develop from today into tomorrow. Over the past few years, we've encountered something huge, something strange, something unmissable and undeniably successful. So no, it's not COVID. Something that's been central to celebrating popular culture. Stranger Things. Stranger Things burst onto Netflix screens with a cult following that swiftly became a global phenomenon. Look, there are so many contributing factors as to why this is. The appeal of classic nostalgia for older audiences who lived through pop culture and the consumerism boom of the 80s. And then just the appeal of some really well-rounded characters to an entire generation who couldn't care less, nor would even understand some of those 80s references. But regardless, the cultural phenomenon is undeniable in its scale. There were 7.2 billion minutes of streaming for season 4 in the first week of its premiere in the US alone. By week 2, that was 12.34 billion minutes streamed. Mind-boggling. In season 3, there were 45 products that were featured. Nothing was paid for. It was all part of depicting that consumer boom of the 80s. But the media value for those lucky brands equaled more than US 15 million. And after weeks and weeks of hearing people whistle and hum this tune, we see Kate Bush is running up that hill, topping charts after 37 years. Now, this one isn't unprecedented for those of us who remember Phil Collins and the Cadbury Gorilla moment, but it is a feat all the same. Stranger Things has also had some tangible and undeniable business impacts for some of the brands involved. Eggo's, the waffles that Eleven falls in love with, has seen sales increases of 14% plus year on year. Another CocaCola reference, here we go. In 1988, CocaCola released their product with a formula change. That's a big mistake, isn't it? Big lesson on if it ain't broken. This product reportedly tastes so bad, it lasted 79 days on shelves before it was pulled. Stranger Things, season 4, is set in the same year. This has allowed Coca-Cola to revisit the fated new Coca-Cola product and re-release it, changing what was a dismal reminder of failed NPD into a cult must-have 34 years later. And at last count, there had been 140 brands featured in half one of season 4 alone, and I don't even know who's going to be counting that, but there will be some smart person sitting somewhere working out what that value is, and it will be astronomical. So clearly, given these references today, product placement isn't new. We've seen ET and Reese's Pieces. We've seen Ray-Bans on Tom Cruise and Risky Business. We've seen Pizza Hut in the EverQuest games. And there's even Lego Masters, because what's a presentation without some New Zealand content? The entire beauty industry, as a rule, has its cornerstone in product placement with influential celebrities who are now social influencers. The gaming industry pioneered integration and interactivity and instantaneous reward through in-game ordering of pizza and so on. So the question I want to pose to you all now is, when you think about all of the technology and the immediacy and the data-fueled insight that we've heard about today, is what happens when everything is instantly shoppable? The mind boggles. Shopping will pervade everything. Everything will be purchasable. And so it kind of stands to reason, therefore, that the platforms that control the purchase funnel, despite how collapsed that might be, will rule supreme. So looking to the future, we know that virtual product placement tools are on the way from both Amazon Prime and Peacock. This gives brands the ability to insert themselves into streaming content post-production. So these products are going to harness the power of context and the platform in terms of scaling up the reach, whilst authentically weaving products into storylines. The tech allows for things like billboards and signs and screens, like the M&M's one you see behind me, to have different messaging throughout a show's lifetime. And we understand that agencies are going to soon be able to buy these placements through DSPs. It seems like just a matter of time, therefore, before these VPPs are in beta for add to cart. And then there's this guy. I mean, where do you start with Amazon? They are busy reorchestrating their sales teams so that separate businesses are no longer siloed. For example, Twitch and IMDb will be sold in conjunction with retail and Prime Video. So retail becomes the connection in their behemoth ecosystem, where that single customer view underpins everything. Now, the sheer amount of data they have access to through retail, content, gaming, and so much more means that they can predictably model shopping behaviours of their customers based on what you're doing at any point in time. So they control the content you see, the products that feature in it. Their control is absolute. And now they've got all the stores, so they know what to put in it. Now, of course, that's also a really neat way for Amazon to produce more and more high cost and quality content. And against a backdrop of Netflix and others losing margin despite a very large demand for their platforms, it's not a very hard step to imagine the way in for Netflix and others to suddenly address those margin issues as they press forward with introducing advertising and brands onto their platforms. Only in the last 2 weeks we've seen announcements from Netflix and Disney with respect to their ad tech partners, and so it begins. and this one's the understatement of the century, live streaming is huge. The last few years, we've seen real-time e-com on the rise massively, particularly through Asia, where we see just staggering impacts, such as the live stream hosted by popular influencer Via in partnership with Taobao, that was part of the cultural phenomenon that is Singles Day in 2019, where she attracted more than 43 million customers. One person, 43 million. It's just staggering. In 2022, live stream shopping is projected to reach about $423 billion in revenue in just China. It's been adopted around the world. Walmart has partnered with TikTok to live stream shopping experience direct from the app, and almost every single social platform is rushing to implement their version of social shopping. I'm beginning to wonder if the combination of live streaming plus virtual product placement plus huge reach platforms, from a content perspective, might see film and content critics become shop culture commentators. But I digress. Back to James Dean Combs' Stranger Things and shop culture. What is to learn for the future state of shoppable everything? Here's a couple of thoughts I've got in terms of how we might approach shop culture. The first is know where your brands and products fit authentically. Start with why people really want them. The second is get culturally fluent. Identify and leverage moments of cultural relevance. If you can, design your calendars and your NPD around them. Use data to show when cultural markers become a trend. Then you're on the money. Understand how you can push mere placements to experiences. Keep testing, as that's the cornerstone of finding out new things, but never at the behest of mass. Ensure you are, regardless of how big your mass is, ensure you're always targeting your volume. Be ready for instant shoppable content at a scale you've never seen before. This will be pop culture, influencer, celebrity effects on steroids. Now, whether that means in supply chain, in delivery mechanisms, and brand tracking, as we've learned over the last 3 years, there isn't a facet of our businesses that isn't affected. And on that, I probably don't need to say this given most of the topics today, but have your MarTech and your customer view sorted now for this future. And if nothing else, get on Amazon as soon as you can. Thank you, everyone.